Episode 9 of Audio Crack, almost at double digits. We'll get there. Our guest today is Matt Allen of Invest Matt Allen on Twitter, head of content at Grit Capital, and you may have seen him on Yahoo Finance and Bloomberg. Matt, like many 25-year-olds in the industry, we don't have much savings right now. And, we're sort of realizing that we've been in the workforce for about couple years out of college or more than that out of high school, and I don't know what to do with my money. And the smartest idea I have is just to buy Bitcoin, because that's what everyone seems to be saying. I've set up a Roth IRA in hoping that that's the best place to put it. But like a lot of guys in my position, a lot of girls too, we're sort of, what should we be doing with our money?
Well, first of all, thank you so much for having me, Billy. Been a long time fan of yours. Followed you for a long time on Barstool. But second of all is open up a Roth IRA is by far the best first step in retirement for the long term outlook. For one, I'm a big Bitcoin guy. I'm a Bitcoin believer. What you can't go wrong with for your long term investments is going with the S&P 500. For example, whenever Warren Buffett dies, he's putting 90% of his wealth into an S&P 500 ETF. And what that is like VOO, for example. That's the stock ticker. Mm-hmm. The ETF tracks the 500 largest companies in the public markets. Mm-hmm. And so basically, Warren Buffett says like this, and I'm a big believer in this: when you own an S&P 500 index, you're owning part of America. You're owning basically capitalism. That the 500 largest companies will keep moving forward and will keep growing, and it's averaged around 10 to 12% a year over the last 40 years. And with that being said, people have to remember is that it averages 10 to 12% a year. So if it goes up 40% one year, then it's going to come back down to eventually equal out that 10 to 12%. So that's one thing people forget about investing, is that, hey, if you stay there long term, you're going to end up being okay.
Okay. So when do you sell for a loss in those situations? Like, really, I haven't been watching the stock market too much. It takes the people who are good at it watch it day to day. I have to be checking out content, browsing the internet for stories. I don't have time to sort of make day-to-day stock picks. What for the, nonchalant, casual stock trader, what would be your strategy?
There's two ways I look at this, Billy. One, they would probably kill me in like at a finance school, but this is how I believe in it. Is one, with your retirement, invest in the S&P 500 index and never sell. Just keep on holding it, keep on adding to it each year. And the Roth IRA is perfect. And when you have retirement, if you max out your Roth IRA, you'll have enough to retire. The second thing I believe in is having what I call like a wealth account, where you can pick more individual stocks. And the secret there is to stick with companies that you know and understand. For example, if you like sports gambling, look at sports gambling stocks, because you understand that. A lot of people try and get involved in these biotech stocks, but they have no clue what the company does. And so when you don't understand the company, you don't know. Like, if a stock goes down a lot of a company you really believe in, you're like, hey, this is a hell of an opportunity to buy more. Yeah. But if you don't understand the company, you start panicking and things like that. So one of my biggest beliefs is buy what you know and meeting companies that you know and understand.
What's the move? So at the end of last year, I had a huge loss in one stock I had. And basically what I did was I sold it, and then I bought another stock in the same sector, and then used that loss to like help me farm losses on my taxes. Is that is smart to do long term, or
it's smart to do if you're just done with that stock. Mm-hmm. If you think if you really believe that's going to go back up one day, then I would say just hold on to it. That's just the simplest thing to do, especially when you're not a professional at like tax harvesting. But if you're done with the stock, it is good at the end of the year to get the loss and then get into something else. That definitely was smart on
you. Mm-hmm. Now the Bitcoin just had the halvening. Mm-hmm. I know you're a big Bitcoin guy. Mm-hmm. The behavior of it has been a little different than it has historically after a halvening. And for those that don't know, the halvening is when basically the supply of Bitcoin being mined is cut in half. So basically, miners now make less money from mining, but more it's because they're making less Bitcoin, and hopefully that drives the price of Bitcoin up due to supply and demand.
Mm-hmm.
It's very weird. A lot of mines have now shut down because they currently cannot operate with a profit due to the halvening. So, what are your outlook on the short-term movements of Bitcoin, and what's some of your takes on how it moved before the halvening and right after?
Well, historically, the Bitcoin halving, like I said, is a catalyst for Bitcoin. So it creates such a less supply, the demand goes up, and it creates kind of this frenzy. We really would start seeing movements in July and August, big movements, and I think that's gonna. I think to date, I don't see anything that my thesis is different about that. I still think we have a great bull run the next year and a half. I think the Bitcoin miners. I'm a big believer in owning. I own a Bitcoin miner stock, Marathon Digital. It correlates with Bitcoin, and I do that because it's an easy way to get into Bitcoin on the stock market, while also you can own Bitcoin outright. But it's kind of interesting. The one thing you got to remember too, Billy, you just said Bitcoin miners are all going out of business, like the smaller ones. Right. So they're going out of business, and a lot of them are just liquidating their Bitcoin. So that's one thing that people fail to realize. Like once the halving happens, Bitcoin miners go out, so they have to liquidate their Bitcoin. And that creates more supply, and then eventually that Bitcoin gets swiped up. And then with the spot ETFs, that creates a whole new dynamic where Wall Street institutional investors are allowed to buy Bitcoin now.
Mm-hmm. So how is the spot ETF going to affect the price? Is it going to cause it to sort of like when there's now huge institutional traders dealing with Bitcoin, are they going to start, messing with it and trying to like reap, gut it?
So whenever gold, me and you, I'm 29 and you're 25. So me and you weren't really around this, but early 2000, we were alive, but not following it. Early 2000s, gold spot ETFs came and sent an absolute boom in the gold markets for the next 4 years. So what that means is there's a difference between a futures ETF and a spot ETF. Mm-hmm. A futures ETF is where you can just kind of bet on that price movement, but no Bitcoin's acquired. So the spot ETFs, every time so Bitcoin's right at $70,000 right now. So if you put $70,000 into the BlackRock spot ETF, they are required to buy one whole Bitcoin and store it. So what it does is it takes the Bitcoin off the market, creating a demand movement.
So does this mean you could have basically Bitcoin in a Schwab account in
retirement? You can do all that, and the interesting thing is, I'm pretty sure like someone like me and you would buy Bitcoin outright, don't mind going on Coinbase. Right. But someone like our parents or grandparents, they're not. Even if they want to be in Bitcoin, it's hard to get in. It was a kind of complicated process. Now they just got to pick up the phone, call their advisor, and say, "Hey, buy this spot ETF." And then the thing that's moving slower than I anticipated or hoped is that advisors aren't learning quick enough to be able to call their clients and ask and tell them about it, which kind of blows my mind, but that's none of my business.
So wait, I can go to like my Vanguard account or my Roth IRA.
Well, you can't do Vanguard right now, but because they don't allow it. But like if you had a Roth IRA on Charles Schwab, you could do it there.
Oh wow! So I could putting Bitcoin in a Roth IRA. Mm-hmm. That's huge because the taxation process for Bitcoin, even so, I have a couple miners. I just got into Bitcoin mining, a couple S21s. Don't mean to flex, but it's only a couple. But we hit big right before the halvening, and we're currently still mining because we have crazy cheap electricity prices, so it's going pretty well. But basically, it's what was I going to say? So right now we're trying to mine as much as you can, see how the price is going to go up. But you have to pay taxes when you mine the Bitcoin, and you have to pay taxes when you sell the Bitcoin. Mm-hmm. So are we going to see, is there any legislation out there that's going to sort of change now that,
Well, actually, President Biden has proposed in his budget is to really increase the mining tax. I don't think that's going to happen. But it's part of his green energy movement. I don't see it getting through.
Hopefully, it's only on non-looped in, because there is legislation in New York State that if you are outside of the grid, it's illegal to create a new Bitcoin mine. So it's illegal to from a non-renewable energy resource. So like if you were to make a power plant that's just powering a Bitcoin mine, that would be illegal to do. But with all this new exposure, there's going to be institutional interest to sort of lobby to sort of uh, uh, not tax the miners as much, cause more supply because there's going to be more demand. But maybe they don't want more supply because it'll drive the price up. So
yeah, and there's going to be a lot of the good and bad thing. I'm a massive advocate, I think everyone is, of AI. But the thing about AI is it takes up so much energy that I think eventually the conversation will get moved from miners to AI as it's slowly happening now. But I do think that, especially with this current administration, if they win in my opinion, if they win a second term, they're going to really try and pass a green energy bill, like a massive one, like a historic one. And I do think Bitcoin mining could possibly be in that.
So banning like non-renewable or
not banning, but I think putting a pretty hefty tax on it. But all you would do is you would drive like someone like Marathon Digital. They would stay in America and mine in another country.
Right.
So it's pretty.
Well, they can't mine in China.
Yeah, like there's like a few places like across Europe and stuff that really embrace it. So they would just move there. Yeah. So it'd be really stupid legislation because we would just lose out on any kind of money.
I mean, it's crazy because there's some of these huge mines that are in places like Russia where they don't have to cool because they can just, the elements keep it cold. The energy's super cheap because, I mean, Russia's very hands off when it comes to energy production and they have the fossil fuels for it. Where would be the best place to invest if hypothetically that were to pass? So is there any offshore besides Marathon Digital? Are there any foreign companies that you'd suggest that might really up their production?
I wouldn't think so, because I would think the big four, the big 3 or 4 players would just move their miners
right
and overseas. And I do think it's getting such a point that legislation is going to be really hard to pass. And then one thing we said about Russia, I don't know if you know this, whenever Russia invaded Ukraine started mining Bitcoin. They own a lot of Bitcoin.
Yeah.
And Ukraine did that to help fund the war, which I thought was interesting.
I know, but it drove the price up because, I mean, that's all that weapons exchange. Like when they first needed weapons, like arms dealers are using Bitcoin. Like when arms dealers are exchanging 90s eras AK-47s from random warehouses that only the what's his name, the Merchant of Death. Like the Merchant of Death is a wild story because basically, from what I understand, the reason he is so valuable to Russia is that he knows the location of so much former Soviet Union weapon stocks. So if they're in say Croatia or Albania or Kazakhstan, he just owns warehouses and knows the locations of them, and that is why he's so valuable. And then he exchanged that to some foreign nation who wants to start a war for Bitcoin. Like the origin of Bitcoin and why it became so well used is pretty shady.
Yeah, for sure. And there's 2 things that I think the audience needs to realize about. Well, one with the arms deals. Let's start there. The reason why they chose Bitcoin is because America and a lot of the allies around the world have sanctioned people like that from moving money around. See, there's cryptocurrency is just the easiest way to any kind of crypto. It's easier than dealing with banks. That is if you are being sanctioned by a foreign government saying, hey, you're using this monetary for bad. We're not allowing you to do any kind of banking. So Bitcoin was the alternative to that. That's actually how Bitcoin is founded. Now, with that being said, is you see a lot of people in Congress say it's used for nothing but criminal stuff. One, that's completely false, but two, the FBI loves when you use Bitcoin in the United States because it's on a blockchain, so it's easy to it's easy to trace, and so it's cash is untraceable. So what these arms dealers are using crypto for, like I said, is because they can't. It's so much easier for them to use crypto because, the one, they're not allowed to use banking systems around the world, and then two, even if they use some kind of cash, if they're not allowed to use banking systems, it's hard to get that much cash.
I mean, the Silk Road back in the day was a huge reason why crypto blew up to where it got, because basically it was an online marketplace, and that was the currency of choice.
Yeah.
When we look back and see what Bitcoin comes to be, because I'm right there with you. Like, I'm hoping that I can just store all my Bitcoin and then at one point be able to cash out and, buy a retirement place or maybe buy my first house, depending on how it moves. If you didn't hear, guys can't buy houses.
Yeah, I saw that was a great quote.
Dude, I was holding it together that whole interview. Like, I'm sounding so professional right now. And I'm just guys can't buy houses. I couldn't decide
if my favorite quote was when you said that or like when she asked you about President Trump. I was like, all right, this is awesome. And then you were like, I'll take his endorsement. I was like,
dude, they try to pin you like, can't I just run for Congress and just not? I mean, like, Trump isn't that big of a deal in District 3, right? Like, the whole Trump, like, I'm not voting for Trump. Like, New York by a miracle will never go red. So, like, what does my opinion on Trump have to do with anything?
Yeah.
Like, I literally just want to help bring money back to the district because they pay way too much in taxes and they get way less back. That was, I mean, for those of you listening who didn't know, I ran for Congress once. Was running, trying to get the new generation, because what do you think about mortgage rates? When are we going to see the Fed like lower rates? Because like the whole housing market.
The problem here, Billy, is that it's there's two problems. One, if we come in there, and I think President Trump will do this, is lower rates, but all that's going to do is create, the real estate is really tricky right now, because if you lower rates like crazy, it's going to create a lot of institutional money that's going to start buying up houses again, which would just send houses, the value of homes, through the roof. But then if you don't, you're in the situation that we're in right now. There is, like, I live in Florida. There's been a lot of data in Florida that we're starting to see tons of supply come into the market. So that's going to help send the value down, obviously. But in terms of rates, is that I'm with Stanley Druckenmiller, who said, hey, I think we should raise it one or two more times, let the economy slow down a little bit more, and then start cutting. Because a lot of people think that in terms of avoiding a recession, raising interest rates are the easiest way to do it, because you essentially slow the economy down, you'll send inflation down, and by doing that, it would send housing prices down, it would send food prices down, because people aren't spending as much because money is harder to get. But as soon as we start cutting rates again, as someone who invests in the stock market, yeah, I love that, because we're going to make money in the stock market. But in terms of just the living day to day, if we cut rates too fast, inflation is going to creep back up, and we're going to be in this is what happened in the 70s. In the 70s, we had Fed chairs who would cut the rates too quick, inflation would creep back up, and we never could get out of this cycle. And then finally, in 1981, Paul Volcker came in there and raised it all the way up to 18%, caused a 6-month recession, and then cut them quickly, and it led to the boom of the 80s. And
would there be any legislation possible that basically only cuts rates and provides, amicable mortgage rates for just non-institutional investors, like first-time homeowners?
There's two, actually. So I very, very often agree with Elizabeth Warren about anything.
Yeah.
But she came and said, hey, like, we should possibly look at incentivizing. She said exactly what you just said. And then she also said, let's look at incentivizing builders to build. Because if you can't lower rates, and the only plausible solution is to just start building a bunch of homes. But unfortunately, it's really hard. It's not something that you can just do tomorrow.
Right. Well, also, it doesn't even have to do with builders want to build. It's just the NIMBY, the not in my backyard housing, building committees in all these towns. Because everyone wants, for some reason, they don't want their taxes raised because of a larger school system. So no one wants new families to move into their town. And it's a crazy predicament we're in, that we basically need to figure out a way to, probably at the state level, I don't think at the federal level, to incentivize towns to want to allow new building permits, allow new housing developments, because, and especially to own, because everyone wants to build rentals.
So I completely agree with you. A lot of that would get handled a lot better at the state and local level. The one caveat to that is that if capital is hard to get because interest rates are so high that it's hard to build.
Yeah,
and that's the same. And that's like the same kind of thesis of, hey, if capital is hard to get, like when interest rates are high, that means capital is hard to get. So people don't go out and start buying a bunch of houses. So there's no kind of competition, which eventually will make the prices go down. But we're in a weird situation where we need supply, but it's hard to build. But then if we make capital easy, prices will skyrocket again. So that's what happened in 2020 and 2021 is money got so cheap. That's why all asset classes exploded. So if you ever in 10 years from now, think of me, if interest rates ever get low, just start buying as much assets as you can, because that's what they do to incentivize assets.
So assets, you're talking about houses
or stocks, and like in 2021, it was pretty much any asset you could ever think of.
Yeah. Well, in 2021, that's when I put all my Jose Canseco fight money into the stock market, and it was 2021, right? Or was it 2020?
It was into 20. It was right around those 2 years.
When was it vastly overvalued? It was the summer of 2020, I think.
It lasted for like a year. It was the same time frame.
But then, I lost like 15, close to 30 to 40% of the money just from like, holding. I think I put in 35, and then I had 25 when I liquidated all of it. And I did tax write-offs while it was depreciating. But, that's sort of made me gun shy to ever go back into the stock market. And the only thing that's really actually been doing, I've kept is all my Bitcoin. So how do I get rich? No, I'm kidding. No, but seriously, there's a lot of people in my, in a similar position where they've gotten burned by the stock market. They, the S&P they're doing the small incremental safe bets. Is that all there is in this economy for us?
Well, there's two things to that. Is that one with the S&P 500? I mean, you're pretty much, over the long term, it's going to be 10 to 12%. So one, the little incrementals, but so the obvious thing is if you want to go the safe route and put more, you just need to increase your cash to put more cash in there. Side hustles or like your fight money, for example, and you just leave it in there. The other thing is that, I think a lot of people look at the stock market like gambling, and people have to remember that you're investing in an actual business. You're a business owner. You can vote to fire the CEO. If you only have one vote, you're probably not going to go far, right. But you're an actual business owner, and people have to look at it like they're owning and running a business. Warren Buffett, if he looks at every single company that he buys as if he was going to buy the whole thing. Meaning, if you're going to come in there and write a check for the entire thing, are you comfortable with owning it? Do you know enough about it? Do you know how to, the operations of it? Do you know who the competitors are? I mean, I know people who buy stocks don't even know what industry it's in, and that's just gambling more than investing.
So, buying beer stocks and like Zen stocks.
I mean, but you you would know, hey. Like Zen's not popular anymore. Like you would know that probably before the Wall Street would. Peter Lynch.
Like when Jewel dropped off.
Peter Lynch, he's one of the greatest investors ever. He'd literally walk around the mall with his wife and he'd be like, "What's this coming off the damn rack?" And then he'd go and buy the stock. And Wall Street is like, "Oh, that was a stupid purchase." And then, when earnings come in, he was right.
Wow. Huh. So when you're going to make those gut check like gambles on small like random stocks, like do something that is selling, that you personally have experience with seeing large consumption of.
Yeah, for sure. And then if you believe in the company and it gets, it's down big, I'm like, hey, that's when it's a good time to go in. A lot of people like to go on the hype when they're hearing about it. Mm-hmm. For example, we send out deep dive research.
Mm-hmm.
I'll give you a great example. Netflix, when they stopped doing password sharing, right? The stock went down like 30-40%, 8-year low. And I'm sitting there, I'm like, damn, I live in Florida with an accent. But I'm like, are these Wall Street people really that stupid? I'm like, hey, just think about it. If one person who doesn't do password sharing just pays money for it, like if you were using my account,
right,
and then you start paying for it, they're going to make more money than they have. Well, the stock got crushed on the news. You know, they've hit all-time highs ever since and they're hitting user highs because people are buying it. Those are just examples where the market doesn't. It's not a rational market, and people just panic sell instead of saying, "Hey, this is actually a great opportunity to buy." Like Warren Buffett calls it his margin of safety, and what that means is that the stock's pretty much down so much that once it gets back to true value, he'll just sell it for a 30% profit versus where people will buy it where it's already up pretty high, and then when it goes down, they're like, "Why is it going down?"
So how do you think the stock market's changed now? There's AI, there's computer coded, there's computer coding where they're using functions and not algebra. I'm blanking on the word, but they're doing
algorithms,
like algorithm trading. And basically, is the stock market still behaving with like gut and consumer movement? Because
there's two answers to that, Billy. It's like one, this is how I like to explain it. One, there's the trading versus investing. And to the audience, trading, like when you trade a stock, it's like the girl you take home from the bar and want to go home and have sex with. Like you're just there for the night. You're trying to make a quick buck on it and get in and get out. That has changed dramatically. Investing is like the girl at the bar that you meet that you want to marry and spend the rest of your life with, meaning that's your retirement, your Roth IRA. And that's actually been in the best shape it's ever been, because think about this. There's more people ever investing in their retirement than there ever has been before. And now we're getting to a point where, long term, it's going to be really hard to see any kind of major 1929 because there's so much money each month coming in that in the past we've never seen before. But in terms of trading, like the day-to-day stuff, the volatility you see, that is because algorithms and AI are, using bots to trade. They're done, but that doesn't really affect the long-term investor at all.
So I'm hoping that you're saying that I shouldn't be trading stocks day to day and watching it because it is pointless, because that's what I tell myself.
Yeah, that's what I'm. It's
okay,
like,
good.
It's hard, yeah, because like I said, there's so much noise, there's so much volatility, there's so much, you're going against AI. But in the long term, the stock market's probably it's the best it's been in terms of the amount of capital coming in, the amount of people investing for their retirement. And
so if you were to take an option on, let's just say Bitcoin, because, I have a bunch of friends, they do options trading.
Yeah.
And they're like, yo, I just made out with 10K today. I'm like, what? How? And he's like, yeah, I bought this many amount and like it hit. And I'm just like, and then I'm like, well, they never tell me about the losses. But is that truly a way to make income? Or is the delta? Is the house always going to win when it comes to that stuff? That's something that's always confused me.
I've done a bunch of option trading in the past. I dabble with it if I see something I like here and then. But it's a zero-sum game. It's very much like gambling in the sense, except the difference between gambling is you can really like chart where this stock might go in the short term, but it's difficult because you can make so much money in such little time, but also you can lose so much money in such little time. So it's really hard unless you have like a really dedicated strategy. Unless the friends you talk to have like a really dedicated strategy and or paying a lot of money to get stock option picked from someone, then they're probably coming out breaking even.
Okay,
because it's a hard game,
and there is a vig of some sort, right? So
yeah, there's the Greeks, which is the delta, the theta, and those things. Like for example, if you're gonna be really fucking frustrated, being an option when the stock price is going up, because your option goes up when the stock goes up in theory, but because of the Greeks and stuff, the theta, if there's not volume going into that option, then your option could be going down while the stock's going up. That's happened to me before, and it's very frustrating. It's a whole different kind of option trading. Is just a whole different ball game. And I tell people, hey, if you just do it, the best way to do it is just like swing trade. If you want to gamble or trade stocks, just go after like just trade the stocks individually, because your upside's nowhere as high, but your downside is way more limited than options, because you could put $10,000 into an option and go to zero.
Yeah, I mean the thing is, besides long-term growth, my sort of pessimistic opinion is that they're like the game's rigged. Like there's no way you're gonna be able to make like concise decisions on the information that is all out there and end up winning every time without luck.
Yeah, and that, I mean, I agree with you to definitely to a pretty big extent. I mean, the shorter you are in the market, or shorter your time period is, the way more there's so many more obstacles.
Right.
Like if you're day trading, I mean, if you take out $10,000 option and you're planning to day trade it, and there's some random guy tweets that the Fed might raise rates, who has no clue what he's talking about, that's going to tank them. But he has, like, say, has a following, he's going to tank the market, and your option is going to go to zero. Yeah. But if you're in that stock, you're invested in that stock for the long term, and it gets hit real hard, then it's going to come back if it's a good company.
And so also I was doing some research, and everyone talks about these large institutional investors buying single family homes and BlackRock, State Street. And when you look at all these companies, you realize that they're all owned by each other. So in the end of the day, if you look at who actually owns something like BlackRock or owns something like State Street, they're all a gigantic monolith of companies, right? So I saw this one graphic that basically was like showing what percentage of each company is if they're owned by. It's actually, let me find it, because it's a really great, but basically it showed that it's a gigantic monopoly.
Well, one thing to keep in mind too is that Berkshire Hathaway, Warren Buffett's company, actually outright owns companies. BlackRock and Vanguard. So you have a Vanguard retirement account,
right?
So you put your money into that retirement account, and they're buying on your behalf. So when you see that leadership, they're buying on their investors' behalf.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
So
like if you put $500 into a Vanguard, let's say S&P 500 ETF, well then they're required to buy, portions of 500 of the companies. So what they're doing is they're putting your money into that. So they're investing on their investors' behalf, and that's why. But them two are so big that so many people, the reason why that chart is so like holy crap when you see it is because they just own so much retirements.
Okay, so that makes a little more rational sense than
it's still, in my opinion, it's still not good. But a lot of people, especially on social media, think that they are buying it themselves. It's even like with the Bitcoin ETF. Whenever people are saying BlackRock is buying up all the Bitcoin, well, Billy, if you sell your $70,000 that we talked about earlier, they have to sell your Bitcoin. So it's not like they're not putting it on their personal balance sheet. It's
just this insane graphic that
I know which one you're talking about.
Yeah, it's like insane. The box that then shows that the box within the box.
Yeah.
And it's like all of these three companies are in black, and then you just see a giant black box with like specks of other colors that represent other ownership.
But it's the same thing too. Like if you've sold your Vanguard S&P 500 ETF, they would have to sell their shares that you have in there. So they would have to sell the shares on your behalf, meaning their percentage would go down. So they're basically like a middleman. That's what they're a middleman for ownership. They don't own it
brokers.
Directly. Yeah, kind of. Yeah, basically, better word for it. Yeah.
But do you think they're with these large institutional investors that are moving all this money, and they know they have so much owned of this? Do you think they have like way more of a handle and are able to sort of manipulate the market to their advantage?
I think Ken Griffin and Citadel have a pretty fucked up business model. I think that's a completely different conversation, and they front run money. They what they do is, so if you use Robinhood,
right?
When you buy a stock on Robinhood, Ken Griffin and Citadel have these wild, I mean, some of the fastest algorithms in the world that know and would pay Robinhood for their order flow. So then they make these micro trades based on the order flow that they receive from Robinhood. And so they can know. So they know, like, if, let's say GameStop, if everyone's dumping GameStop, they're getting the order flow within milliseconds, and they're going to place front running trades. So they're shorting GameStop as the order flow comes in.
So yeah, what exactly was that situation? So were they making like pennies on the share?
Basically, yeah, and 100%. They're making like probably even less than a penny, but on such a large scale that,
right,
like me and you would be making, milliscule pennies. But when you do it on such a large scale, they were front running, and they were probably in trades like less than a millisecond at times.
oh wow,
Yeah.
so they were able. So yeah,
that's why people trade for free at Robinhood. So back in the day, you used to have to pay commissions. Robinhood innovated this because the two guys who founded it, Vlad Tenev and whatever the other guy is, they were Wall Street guys. They realized they made a backroom deal and said, "Hey, we're going to create this free app. We're going to raise a bunch of money, bunch of secret Wall Street money that comes from VC, but a lot of that VC was all from Wall Street, like a lot of Wall Street ties. You guys make sure this thing doesn't get stopped by Congress, and you're going to make a lot of money from it." And so that's how Ken Griffin. That's why Citadel and Ken Griffin have been dominating the last 4 years.
So then, when GameStop occurred, how were they able to? Because there was this idea that they beat Citadel, they beat the system. What exactly was the exact sort of meme stock trend that allowed them to overcome that? Or was that exactly Citadel, or was it?
It was Melvin Capital.
Yeah.
And so the guy at Melvin Capital, Steve Cohen, the owner of the Mets. Steve Cohen is, dude. I got a good book for you that let me look it up. It's a book about Steve Cohen. Hold on. He's one of the greatest traders ever, but he is it's called Black Edge. It's a label of a shark on there. But so real quick story. Steve Cohen is had to pay $1 billion fine for $1 billion with a B for insider trading. He ran his hedge fund like the mafia. We're talking about he used to pay mafia advisors of how to. That's what they cover in the book of how to get information up to him without actually being insider trading. He 100%, 120% used insider trading. But also, like before that, he was also one of the best traders ever. Probably still is, but he just happened to use insider trading as well. Well, the guy who founded Melvin Capital was one of the, called one of the greatest minds on Wall Street. He was backed by Steve Cohen, and his fund was one of the ones who took such a big loss, but then kept on getting loans from people like Steve Cohen, people like, some people say Ken Griffin. Ken Griffin says he denies it, but Melvin Capital got shut down, and that was the big win. And you took one of the best traders. He's a young trader too, and pretty much because what he did was he just kept shorting GameStop. He kept on like getting loan money to short it even more.
Yeah.
And so he went down.
Wow.
Yeah.
So just because they saw that they were going to do a huge short on GameStop, and then all these guys who were like, GameStop was the best part of the mall, and bought the stock.
Yeah. So what happened was that GameStop had a bunch of short interest because there's belief that, hey, the GameStop has no long-term, won't be here forever. And so the guy, Roaring Kitty, who got famous for it, who made the $48 million, sit in the stock and said, hey, this is a great short squeeze. And what a great short squeeze is that when a stock starts, if there's a bunch of short interest and the stock starts going up, then if you're short the stock, you go into what is called a margin call, and it's basically the broker saying, hey, you got to start paying us money. And the way to what happens, Billy, is that the way to like not pay money is start buying the stock, and then you're going to make money from it going up.
Right.
And you sell your profits and then basically break even. That's
right.
That's why it squeezes. Well, what happened was that these shorts never left their position. They kept buying the stock, and then the stock just never went down. And then the stock got up to like 140% short interest. People were having to call in like loans. Like I said, like that's why Steve Cohen.
So they had to keep buying
it, yeah, or write your check like they owed all this money. So in theory, instead of like writing the check, they said no, we'll make the profit off GameStop. This will eventually stop, like no pun intended, but eventually stop, come down. we'll break even, because that happens if you study short squeezes. Eventually the short squeeze stops. If you got squeezed and you bought the stock, you eventually can maybe not break even, but just take your loss and go home.
It's just mitigated. It's not as bad as it could have been.
It's not 100%. With GameStop, it got as bad as it could, and that's why people started throwing around conspiracies, because you started finding out a bunch of these Wall Street guys were writing checks to the Melbourne Capital, who had a lot of power, and then they're like, yeah.
Oh wow! So
like Michael Jordan had money invested in Melbourne Capital.
Oh wow! Jeez, I mean, but with that, how did this Roaring Kitty guy make money?
He made money because he was in at such a low price, and that when the stock squeezed, when it went up so high, he just didn't sell either. He never took his profits. Like a lot of people would have taken their profits early on. He just rode the whole ride.
Mm. So something I was looking a lot on when it came to insider trading was, how do politicians insider trade? So because I've had a little experience with like what exact bills pass, like the CHIPS Act, and that's why Nvidia has gone nuts. But what are some other examples how having the inside track on information and how people are going to vote helps them enrich themselves?
So one of the main, one of the main jobs of Congress is oversight. You have the budget, you have the act to declare war. Those are your two biggest. Then the third is your impeachment. But arguably, oversight is one of the most important jobs, which means you're on committees that overlook different parts of either the country, and most importantly, like the Department of Agriculture. Like you're making sure that they're doing the right things. You're hearing what they're doing. You're making sure you're getting insight, because you're an equal branch of the government. Well, with that being said, is that let's say you sit on the Air Force caucus. There was a politician. Let me look up his name, make sure I get his name right. Kevin Hearn. He sits on the Air Force caucus. He started buying Lockheed Martin stock. Well, he got briefed that Lockheed Martin and the Air Force have reached a $7.8 billion deal.
Whoa. Okay.
And so he buys the stock before it's announced to the public. And it's not illegal. It's in it should be, but there's no, I just think, I personally believe that Congress should just be made to put their money into the S&P 500 and call it a day.
The divesting, I almost, if I got on the ballot, I was going to sign the liquidating all your stocks in Congress Act.
I don't even know if that's fair for you though, or because is that you wouldn't have the opportunity to, retire one day.
Yeah.
But I think there was a way you could mitigate where you're like, hey, you can only put your money into the S&P 500.
Yeah, because you should be able to grow.
Yeah. But you shouldn't be able to insider trade either. There's like a two.
Yeah.
And so what happens is that they go back, you get briefed. So each committee member gets briefed on what's happening. And, a lot of it can be classified information. And so the classified information is, hey, we're gonna reach a deal. Microsoft and the FBI have made a deal to host their server.
Right.
And if you think that stock's going up because of it, people have bought the stock. For example, 38 members of Congress beat the S&P 500 last year. 38. That's a pretty wild number if you think, because a lot of hedge funds don't beat the S&P 500.
Well, they're beating Warren Buffett. They're beating the biggest guys. So is the stipulation just because they are government officials and they have access to insider government information classified, as opposed to, corporate information?
Yeah.
Is that the big stipulation?
So the big stipulation, for example, was if whenever the Penn Barstool deal, the whole that day, the ESPN bet, let's say that Dave knew what deal was going to happen and told you, and you went and bought Penn stock, you'd be in prison right now, or I'd be.
Yeah.
But the difference is, because they get received classified information, that there's no one prosecuting it, and they say they're put up to the same standards, but it's obviously not true. The other big issue is that if you, let's say that you was ultimate President Billy came in there and did ultimate crackdown on Congress, well, then you're going to have your FBI go undercover they're going to receive a lot of classified information. So then you have a whole you can't you would have to have so many people who are not supposed to have classified information receive classified information because they're investigating people who have.
Then it finds out that Lockheed Martin's building the UFOs.
It's a whole
because it would be impossible to prove. Because I know with insider trading cases, like a lot of people like do the right trades and then look like they have insider information. So you'd have to prove that they knew that information.
Yeah. And so one way around that they do that too is that I've heard is that, let's say you sit on the agriculture committee, I sit on the defense committee, and there's an agriculture deal.
Yeah.
And you tell me and I tell you the defense deal, and then it can never really be traced back. That's how Steve Cohen, who we just talked about, got away with his insider trading. Jeez. Is that it's really hard to, unless it's pretty obvious, like in the example of Dave tells you and you go buy a stock, it can get really complicated to figure out, because then all of a sudden you're just making up. You could be potentially making up information. For example, let's say the Dave to you, and then you told one of your buddies. And then I have a good buddy named Turner, for example. Then that buddy told Turner. Then Turner told me. Yeah. Well, I mean, then all of a sudden you're just gossiping.
Yeah.
And so, but that's why insider trading cases can be really hard to prove, because unless it's like the direct one-on-one, once you start getting more people involved, you don't know if it's gossip or if it's legit or if it's almost like a telephone game.
And then it's also, if you tell your wife, like Nancy Pelosi's husband made a lot of the NVIDIA trades.
Yeah. He allowed, a lot of people don't know this. He was a really, really they made all their money in the 70s and 80s. He's one of the best investors of the 70s and 80s.
Uh-huh.
And so you have him being a really, really good investor. That's like his career, and then getting inside information. I mean, it's a gold mine.
Yeah. It's just like, no wonder they're married.
And that's why
match made in heaven.
That's how she rose up so quickly in the Democratic Party, is because of all the money they had. He would donate a lot of it, would help get candidates elected, and then she'd be like, "Yeah, you're my bitch now." Even when she was like a low congresswoman.
The amount of money it takes to run for Congress, and I'm pretty proud of like how much we were able to raise and how we executed. Like we were running a very frugal grassroots campaign, and using social media to our advantage. Like we were able to do what we could, but we ultimately got killed because we just didn't have enough money to fight this gigantic institution that was taking us to court and trying to get us off the ballot. And I mean, if I would have gone through with it if I had more of my personal money, but like I couldn't call up people and be like, hey, can you give me the max 3,300? Like I did that to KFC and he talked about it on the radio, but it's so awkward. It's the worst part about running for Congress is like literally just begging people for money.
Did he do it?
Actually, let me check. I don't know if the site's still up.
That's such a low life way to go about it, is by using litigation to get someone off the ballot.
Yeah.
And it's truly corrupt. It's truly, I mean, it's like it's a pussy move instead of just going to beat you one-on-one.
Yeah. I mean, if you're really concerned about, a 25-year-old with zero political experience, beating you in a primary where you have, it was $1 million race. Mm-hmm. Like it would have taken over $2 million to win the seat anyway. Let me search.
He was worried about an AOC type grassroots.
Yeah.
I mean, that's how she won. She went, like you were doing. She went door to door.
Yeah, I don't think. Yeah, no. KFC did not donate in the end. It's fine. But he had comedians on his own podcast. He's like, dude, you had the opportunity to have a congressman in your back pocket, and like, why did you take that for the chance? And, I don't know how much I could have helped. Probably, like, I mean, everyone's doing everyone so many favors. Like helping KFC get out of some parking tickets might be the.
Oh yeah, that would have easily been able to happen.
Yeah. But crazy. So one thing that has really puzzled me, and I know you expressed some interest about this, is Jeffrey Epstein. how did he become so wealthy? And do we really know? And was there actual merit to him being this financial mastermind?
So, I can go down that rabbit hole. No, he is no financial mastermind. It's been pretty much proven that he's not a financial mastermind. But I think when you look at Jeffrey Epstein, you have to go look at his father-in-law, Robert Maxwell, which is Ghislaine Maxwell's dad. He was a known Mossad agent, which is Mossad is the Israel version of the CIA. Right. He was a very, very, very wealthy man who controlled the British media. That was his big stuff. That's how he made all his money. Like I said, he was also a very big asset to Mossad. He was killed in suicide, but a lot of people would say, hey, no, he was definitely murdered. There's a lot of connections between Israel, the Israel CIA, or the Israel Mossad, and Jeffrey Epstein. And it kind of makes sense when you start putting all the connections together. Mm-hmm. He had no background in finance, really. He worked at Bear Stearns for a little bit, didn't do much. He's, in terms of he had all this wealth, all these really nice stuff, but like I said, no one knew where he got it from. We're talking about he has no family connections, like there's no family that was wealthy. He didn't make money trading. And the Israel Mossad has used someone like him in the past to get intelligence on really famous and powerful people in America and in different countries. Mm-hmm. For example, there was this guy in the 60s named Eli Cohen. He was an undercover spy for Israel, and what he did was, no one knew where he got his money. He was a multi-millionaire, but no one knew where. And he would use girls. He would leverage girls, a lot of them underage, to powerful people and gain intelligence on them. Huh. And how about this, Billy? Ghislaine Maxwell's dad was one of the people who funded that operation. Oh, wow. And so, it's like you start thinking like, hey, there's a lot of rumblings that you start looking up that, hey, Jeffrey Epstein was pretty much definitely intelligence. Now, the argument is you could say, hey, it was CIA intelligence. I don't know, obviously. But I think the conspiracy was that he was obviously a horrible person, but that he was just some guy who just go on these islands. I don't think I think that's almost a conspiracy more than him.
Yeah. I mean, the thing is, how do you even fake having that much money?
We're talking about that much money. You can't fake it. Like, you could fake buying a Range Rover because you hit a lottery ticket and you're like, hey, we're talking about hundreds of millions of dollars.
Like the financial records of even where did it come from? How can you move that much money? How can you maintain that much money without causing more red flags that it's all for nothing?
There's people who do that, and that is usually most of the time intelligence. And like countries can do that because a lot of times they control the banks or have some kind of say in the banks. And then when this is the crazy part. Whenever he got charged in 2008 in Miami, the reason why he got off was the quote unquote intelligence.
Yeah, that was what the
was
DA.
Weird.
And the DA was someone in the Trump administration.
Alex, I know it's
Alex Barr. Yeah.
No, Alex. Alex,
whose father hired him at another school. I'll find the exact.
Alex Azar.
Yeah,
that was his name. Alex Azar. Azar.
He was the one who said we let him off because he was intelligence.
I think that was him. Let me make sure.
There was another name, and we can cut this, but basically someone who hired Jeffrey Epstein. No,
Alexander Acosta. I knew it was AA.
Yeah, Acosta. Yeah.
I knew it was AA. We might want to cut that out.
we can. But Epstein's and his father was hired by, I think, Acosta's father or Bill when he was at Dalton. We can find the exacts. We can cut this. One sec. Let's just find the exact because it's good. Jeffrey Epstein hired by Trump appointee father. I should just pull up William Barr. So William Barr.
That was the AG.
Yeah, he was the attorney general at the time who said that he was intelligence and that's why they didn't do it. But it's crazy. So the fact that it all went under him being intelligence would make a lot of sense. And
it would make way more sense than anything, especially if you look into Eli Cohen. Like I said, he was this undercover guy. He went into Egypt, and he became the vice president of Egypt, Billy, and he was he was an Israel Mossad agent.
That is nuts.
He would have these lavish parties, invite all these powerful people. No one knew where he made his money.
Mm-hmm.
He's known as one of the greatest spies of all time.
He was in so deep. He was the vice president of the country.
And then there's this is kind of argued and stuff, but do you remember the 7-day war between Israel and Egypt? So they were the Egyptians had an underground base that Israel did not know where it was at.
Yeah.
The rumor is that Eli Cohen, as a gift, planted trees for the soldiers there. And that we do know one thing, that Israel bombed those trees during the 7-day war and ended the war. Like instead of bombing, they didn't know where the underground. They just bombed the trees.
Yeah,
that was
okay. So he said he put the trees there,
but that was also as a gift to the Egyptian people and made them love him even more.
Oh my God,
he's
nuts.
But he did the same exact things that Epstein would do. That he would, get all these powerful people. I mean, to the point that he had the Queen of England's son, Jeffrey Epstein, did. I mean, that's...
Yeah. I mean, hypothetically, if you were, war is a terrible thing. And if you wanted to help sweep some stuff under the rug to make sure that the existence of a state kept on going.
That's why their intelligence is so good.
Yeah. I mean, there is like what happened on October 7th was terrible, but they might have known it was coming even before that.
So there's I've seen that conspiracy too. Is that because Benjamin Netanyahu, who's in so much, if you don't know, he's the leader of Israel, but he's been in so much controversy and like criminal, like allegations, things like that. But he's known as a wartime leader. So there's nothing better that the people of Israel want than a wartime leader, of it being him. Like you can say, anyone else can say, hey, he's terrible when there's non-wartime, but wartime, he's your man.
Yeah. I mean, Chuck Schumer is like demanding he steps down. Like it's a crazy situation and, very complex. I mean, Iran, state-sponsored terrorism. Why did the Biden administration give Iran so much money that wasn't allowed? Then we find out that there was an Iranian spy in his foreign policy committee who was then investigated. It's completely lack of insight and, giving Iran all that money. What, they're not going to spend it on terrorism and taking out their sworn?
I'm a firm believer that that whenever we went and took out Saddam Hussein was just really just stupid foreign policy because he was such an old leader. Look what he got into. Like he was doing very little. 20 years ago was a different story, which is why I think the Bush administration did that because they were still obsessed with what happened 20 years ago whenever his dad was president. But Iran, I believe the Ayatollah not on this earth makes this world a lot better place because, like you just said, they do nothing but sponsor terrorism over and over and over again. I mean, they're the lead sponsor by terrorism by far.
Yeah, I mean, they're like the number one terrorist fans in the world.
Yeah.
And it's not just because they're like the largest, like Indonesia, largest Muslim country, not the largest sponsor of terrorism in the world.
They're just so radicalized. And I've always said that, hey, because I love just studying foreign policy. Kim Jong-un was educated in the West. Yeah. He's a pretty smart guy. He really loves his life, how he has it, that he just says all his shit just to get on TV, which is kind of smart foreign policy too. If he gets nukes, that man ain't doing shit with it. Yeah. But if Iran gets nuked, they're going to use it day one. I mean, they're not even, they might misfire because they're going to be so excited about how much they want to use it.
Well, something in one of the earlier episodes, we had basically some theory that the U.S. has crazy technology and basically has like those unidentified aerial phenomenon that our fighter pilots have been seeing are actually U.S. drones and it's our technology. And it's gotten to the point where there was a video that leaked, which people are debating whether it's real or not. The one piece of evidence that proves that it's fake is one, background JPEG that was a stock image that they're saying that shows that this whole thing was fake. But thing is, no one's found that stock image before 2016, and the videos from 2014. So the stock image could have been created after the fact to disprove this video, just for the U.S. government's sake. But basically, that they might be able to take planes and flying objects out of the air by using a portal through space-time, which is totally crazy and really wild when you say it. But the thing is, we do know there are objects that move that don't make sense physically. Like they don't have propulsion devices. Like that is true. The government has acknowledged there's stuff that moves that we don't know how.
And that's the same thing though that Bob Lazar said in the 80s.
Yeah.
And it was all defense technology and it ended up being right.
Yeah.
And I do think that the things we see is probably more than likely defense technology than it is anything else.
Yeah. So the only reason why I'm like bringing this up is that if that technology exists, that means that nukes don't matter. So like they can delete nukes out of the air and just send them to like to the bottom of the ocean or make them blow up somewhere where they won't. So like Kim Jong-un may have been launching nukes at us for like for tens of years if we're just deleting them out of the sky.
Well, one thing I think that's why they're really worried about Russia and China, I guess, being able to get into space.
Yeah,
because they don't want to be able to. They're in space. I mean, the worry is that they'll put nukes in space and that will have like a targeted shot, which would change our whole defense technology.
Yeah, or EMPs. I mean, the thing is, I'm not that scared of EMPs because like
what are those?
Electromagnetic pulses that takes out all the technology, electricity.
Okay, yeah, I am.
But like, okay, hey, they do, it will just turn everything off, but we will be able to turn a lot of stuff back on. It would take like a decent amount of time, but an EMP, it turns everything off, and yeah, we won't have certain a lot of our utilities, but we will be able to turn them back on. We will be able to get electricity back by running the power plants after fixing them, like by having the wind turbines turn on, like by burning, like we will be able to jumpstart everything back on. It's just like a car. Like if you have an EMP hit a car, like and it disables all of its electronics, you can get a car battery and jump it. Like I don't know what an EMP would do to like a car battery, but I don't think it destroys all of the voltage and all of the charge.
True.
So these are the things I tell myself when I'm scared that nukes are going to hit.
Yeah.
I mean, one tactical nuke in Ukraine, and I'm grabbing my grab bag and I'm getting out of any metropolitan area.
Remember, there was a lot of belief. I don't know if this was more U.S. based media propaganda but there was a lot of, I guess, people were saying that they thought that Putin would just use the nuke, call it a day, and end the war. Like that was the first year.
Yeah.
A lot of people were saying that.
Yeah, they're just like, yeah, he's just gonna blow the place to smithereens and just roll.
Like I said, I don't know if that was just propaganda to help get more money to them.
Yeah, I mean, the thing is, economically, all this money that we're sending to Ukraine, that is really just being, washed through our defense contracting. We're getting crazy amounts of data from how our weapons are working in Ukraine, like the drones that we're making and that they're using are like a horror film.
Mm-hmm.
Like some of these drone footage is insane. Like there's a drone and it's literally like going right up to a Russian soldier and just like setting off grenades right next to their heads.
That was the one most surprising part, is that how bad the Russian military, like, and on paper, that is like a SEC versus D2 school.
Well, I think the best comparison of Russia-Ukraine would probably be Colorado State versus an SEC and catching them out. Who is their big upset win? Because Colorado State's just like random Mountain West conference, gets a huge influx of star players, head coach, just out of nowhere.
Yeah, but I'm still shocked that war is going on in the sense of that Russia hasn't been able to end the thing.
They haven't.
I thought they'd end it like in a month or two.
I mean, there's still the thing is the amount of money that they're offering people to enlist. Like I once knew this Russian boxer. His name's Dmitry Bivol, and I was with him in Vegas after he beat Canelo in a fight. And I was like, actually, I don't know if we should put this in. Okay, well, basically, something I know about the Russian military is that they're like everyone, most of Russia's forces come from uh, East Russia. They're not ethnic Russians. They're like in former Kyrgyzstan border areas, and they're enlisting guys from all over Siberia. And the bulk of their fighting forces are coming from the far outskirts of their um, empire, Dagestan, like the Khabib dude, like Khabib Chechens.
Oh, dude, that guy.
Yeah, they're like the baddest dudes on
Yeah.
earth, and they're offering them tons of huge amounts of property because I mean, land's cheap over their houses, uh, a pension for their family even after they're dead. Like the benefits they're giving these guys are insane, and it's like you can't pass it up for a lot of them, and it's just forced conscription on the other hand. So it is we really don't know what's going on there because there might be French troops in there currently. There's definitely U.S.
We've known that the CIA has been on the ground training.
Yeah. Well, are they training or are they fighting?
Yeah,
a lot of people
that's the other. Yeah.
And I mean, they say that it's not Ukraine's biggest problem isn't being able to defeat the enemy. It's just running out of ammunition. Like because the Russians still use to this day body shield, which is waves of dudes coming over their front lines and they're just stacking up bodies and like it's like a zombie. It's like a zombie apocalypse. They just don't stop throwing bodies at it.
It's crazy.
It's crazy that they have not evolved like their military strategy, especially since World War II.
And they got exposed pretty hard during this war in the sense of, I mean, if you looked at a real NATO versus them war, they wouldn't. They wouldn't stand a chance because they don't have the technology like we thought they did. They don't have the leadership that they thought we did, which was shocking.
In Syria, there's this like terrifying. Yeah, the Battle of Qashm was a military engagement of the Syrian civil war that was basically U.S. forces versus Russian troops. And they basically, the Russians were moving in, their supply line was just like 3 miles long. They were about to take this U.S., what they thought at the time was just Syrian protected oil field, but there was really U.S. contractors and U.S. military in there. And basically what happened is the U.S. just said, all right, let's light them up. If they called Russia, they said, yo, Russia, is there any Russians in this gigantic supply line that's about to attack this oil field that's under the Syrian military? And it's Wagner Group fighters. And so Russia's like, no. And then the U.S. just they send the whole kitchen sink at this supply line and destroy everything. And the survivor, they don't know how many Russians died, but like apparently the Russians after that were like, holy shit, we could never beat the U.S. in the war because they don't have the air support.
Yeah, it's crazy.
And then just recently, Niger, there was a U.S. military base in Niger, and we screwed up our foreign policy in Niger, and they kicked out the U.S. military from the military base there, and the Russians just came in the next day.
We've had the majority of people would not realize is that I think one of the biggest failures of the Biden administration is we've spent such a long time in African foreign policy because that continent is if you look at it as an investment the next 50 years you can't beat it. They have so many minerals, it's so big, it's going to be developed, and that's why it's such a competition there, and we have really messed that up in the last 3 years.
Yeah, well the thing is we're beating, like China and Russia are beating our foreign policy because we want to send money to all these places, but there's tons of social stipulations that are required. Like, and the thing is, China and Russia, they'll just build them bridges and they'll give them money for like exchange of goods, and they will deal with corrupt leaders and work with them. And they don't care. Whereas like we won't work with certain leaders. We want liberal democracies. Like we won't fund countries that are anti-LGBTQ, which, you know, it's terrible that you know, there's such a persecuted group in those areas, but the leaders are like, you'll give us money, but we have to repeal and like scale back our conservative culture. But the Russians will just give us money if we give them access to this mine, and you know, they'll pay us like.
Yeah.
And the Chinese will build bridges and roads and infrastructure for nothing as long as you just let them use it, and they'll just own the port. It's a no, like we're not competitive with these other nations who will just pay them off, do the dirty work. Like all of our stipulations with our money is giving us a real, and it sounds very pessimistic. That's like we should just start doing dirty work too, but you know, we're gonna end up like
we're going to end up behind, especially in the continent of Africa.
Yeah,
we're not having any friends there, and there's it's such a rich commodity continent that, you know, the African countries will make a lot of money exporting it, but it's either going to be exported to America or exported to China or exported to Russia. And right now they're going to be exporting all their minerals to Russia and China, and not us.
Yeah. So in Niger, because of a military coup, the new government said that it was unconstitutional for the U.S. to have Air Base 101 in Niamey. So because of that, then Russia took over the airbase right as we left. They literally kicked them out. And that is a huge tactical, that airbase is like a huge asset to us in Africa. If we have something go wrong where like we have U.S. citizens trapped in a bad situation, those are the types of places that will send out, you know, military to extract U.S. citizens. I mean, it was actually Congo. There was another coup in Congo where they found Americans in who were helping do the coup, and it's like, is the U.S. just like trying to start coups to install governments that are more loyal to our process, and in the same time making Africa, like making a lot of countries in Africa mistrust our true intentions? And
we did that with Gaddafi in Libya, and President Obama still calls it his worst mistake of his presidency. And because we lost a lot of trust there too, because Gaddafi was like really loved in his country. He was a really like, the reason why President Obama had him taken out was because he was a really, you know, not the best guy ever.
Yeah.
but there was just a lot of people there who truly loved him, even though they knew how bad of a guy he was.
His financial monetary policy, how is that sustainable? He just nationalized. He nationalized the energy production, and then just used it to pay all of his citizens to keep them happy.
Yeah.
And then he just persecuted political opposition.
Yeah.
I mean, pretty good playbook. Kind of a great way to run a country if you're that guy.
Yeah. You have about 10 years or so. It's been the best 10 years of your life.
Yeah. Just like people are happy. You know, anyone who doesn't like me, I get rid of them. And hey, I mean, they had one of the highest literacy, like for some reason, TikTok spams me like Gaddafi propaganda. Like Gaddafi was great guy. He was great for education. Great for
that's coming straight from Beijing, Billy.
Yeah, dude. The TikTok algorithm is the stuff I like. I got a little bit of like congressional briefing stuff on TikTok. It is so bad. It needs to like, and then you're probably you might be watching this clip right now on TikTok, but TikTok is terrible. TikTok is in your phone. It's in all your pictures. You know, when you go to your app and say, oh, give access to all my pictures, and you're thinking, oh, it's just so I can use the pictures to post to TikTok. No, it's going through all your photos, looking at all the faces, all the people you know, anyone who is a political dissident in China or a political dissident anywhere. It's selling that information from the Chinese government to, say, Iran or another state. Like if you're like, oh, I have no beef with China, but hey, maybe you were in the United States protesting pro or against some cause, and now TikTok took your information and saw pictures of you at the protest, cross-referenced it, and now, you know, you're on a foreign country's hit list because they know you're against you know, whatever regime or everything you're protesting. It's not just China. They're exporting that info all across the world. So it is wild.
Would you do you think so? Let's say, I guess if me and you're not buying TikTok, but if we had the money, would you still buy it without the algorithm? Because they're saying if you buy it, if they say they're not going to sell it, but if they do sell it, they're not. You're just getting basically the users with no data and the brand.
So the algorithm isn't that unique.
Mm-hmm.
Reels, shorts, Instagram Reels, like that's not what's unique about the algorithm. The TikTok algorithm is valuable because it is such a great way to like harvest information, and that's why China doesn't want to give it up. Like you might have a company who comes out and tries to buy it for however much it's worth. And the thing is, I don't know how many firms in the United States with allegiance to the United States have enough money. It's like how we're running out of people to buy NFL teams.
And that's the thing with like even when Elon tried to buy Twitter, he had a tough time raising money. It's not because people didn't believe in Elon, but it's because you get such a small stake.
Yeah.
Like you spend up a lot of money for such a small stake that it's going to take a lot of money to get your capital. It's going to take a massive valuation to get your capital back. And you're exactly right is saying because, if you put up $10 billion or $1 billion and purchase a $100 billion company, it's got to be a lot of money to eventually get your money back. And that's a pretty big risk.
Yeah.
You're talking a lot of capital.
So the Chinese government, right, in their holding company, whoever's behind ByteDance, if they're like, oh, you're going to buy us out for $10 billion or however much it's evaluated at, like it's probably around like what, 700 million to $1 billion?
No, 75 billion is what it's probably going to go for.
How much was Twitter? I need to get my scale. It was 30 billion?
43 billion, I think.
43 billion. Okay, I got my.
Don't quote me on that. Let me look it up.
Yeah, once the numbers get that big,
44 billion.
Yeah, 44 billion. So it's double Twitter.
I was close. One off.
Yeah. Once the numbers get that big, I can't even conceptualize it. Mm-hmm. So yeah, let's say, you give 70 billion to ByteDance and ByteDance is like, hell yeah, $70 billion. That's worth it. We probably maintain our stake. We just have different owners and we don't lose our jobs or anything. But it is way more valuable to the Chinese government than $70 billion. Mm-hmm. Like it is worth hundreds of billions of dollars because it's literally like got every congressional member's kid on it. And then they got access to the Wi-Fi network of that congressional member's kid. Oh, that congressman's on Ashley Madison. It shows up in his Wi-Fi. We got blackmail on him. Yeah. You're going to vote against this foreign policy bill now because we're going to tell your wife you're on Ashley Madison.
Didn't even think about that. I didn't even think about that aspect too.
Yeah, the blackmail's crazy. Like, who knows what they've already done?
Mm-hmm. Well, one thing I tweeted about when this happened is that, in my opinion too, is that the Democratic Party is no one enough's talking about how much of a civil war internally they're in. Is because of Israel-Palestine. The young people are so pro-Palestine, while you have a lot of pro-Israel donors in the Democratic Party that fund a lot of money that are really upset about the pro-Palestine movement. And the number one source of that movement's been is TikTok. And the China knows exactly what they're doing.
Yeah, and then I think it was Ole Miss. There was like the two protests, like Ole Miss pro Gaza, and then they're just dudes with American flags, and they're both just chanting "fuck Joe Biden," and it's just like, what? Like this. I don't see how he wins. At this point.
Yeah, because you have there's so many young voters that are truly so upset that helped him win in 2020. Yeah. They're upset with some of the things he promised that he didn't do. They were very, very, very progressive. Then there was others, the pro-Palestine thing is going to cost him a lot of votes.
I mean,
a lot of young votes. There's speaking of spying, I've read a book and watched the 60 Minutes on Sunday about it. Her name's Anna Montes. She was a spy. Well, probably just ruined the story, but she started off in the State Department and was known as one of the biggest experts of Cuba from the longest time. She worked there 20 years. Then she moved to the CIA. They were thinking about making her some kind of director. for a Cuban relation, she was literally a Cuban spy for Castro the entire time.
Wow, she was born in Nuremberg, West Germany. So
Yep.
that was her father was a U.S. Army doctor. So her family was Spanish, and her grandparents immigrated to Puerto Rico. Huh. So she grew up in America. I wonder what made her end up being Cuban.
So they, like in the book I read, they say the way to majority of times the way you go and get someone and flip them like is that you do it when they're already in the office, and like they said she came trying to get that job to be a spy, like meaning she was radicalized from like she just believed in the politics.
And she's probably Spanish communist.
Yeah,
type.
She's out now in Puerto Rico, and she was like, she says the worst thing she ever did was tell the FBI what she did. Like when instead of being in life in prison, they said, hey, if you tell us everything, we only get 20 years, because they wanted to know like what she's all told them. And she still says, hey, the worst thing I did was tell.
Oh wow, so she's still down for the cause.
Yeah, no, she's not allowed back in Cuba though, because she's not allowed to go to Cuba because of what she told.
Oh wow, so she can't go to Cuba and the U.S. hates her. Yeah. So she's just fucked.
But it's interesting. She's living in Puerto Rico, and I was like, well, that's still it's a territory. But
stone's throw.
Yeah, I mean,
yeah, that's wild. Oh my god. Well, anything else? Oh, little acknowledgement for I won a cracker of the day yesterday.
Oh, I saw that.
Yeah, Antonio Brown. just for those.
That's a pretty big award.
I know. I'm pretty honored. Hopefully, maybe we shoot for cracker of the year next.
Did he reply to your boxing thing?
Yeah, he just said I look like Quagmire, which is, I don't know. Like I look more like, I get it. Like Quagmire's got a big jaw. Sometimes my jaw looks big. I don't know. Come punch it. I mean, AB, you're broke, dude. Like, we could make a shit ton of money boxing, and I think you're broke. You're mad I wrote a blog about you being broke. We could talk a lot more shit, make a lot more money, and you need it. And I'd be down.
Do you think the Tyson Paul fight's gonna be rigged?
So the thing with that fight is that as you get older, I'm concerned about how long the fight is. I think, Jake, what they're going to do is no one's going to want to see Mike Tyson get knocked out. It's just everyone's going to be like, oh God, it's going to be like, why would you do this? He's an old man. No one wants to see that. What the best outcome they want is Mike Tyson and Jake Paul going the distance. Jake Paul looking like he lasted, kind of like the Logan Paul Floyd Mayweather fight, where everyone was like, oh man, Logan hung in there, and he didn't win, but he did way better than we thought. Like, Mayweather should have been able to knock him out in 2 seconds, but Logan was so much bigger, and Jake's just so much younger. Jake's put on a shit ton of weight for this fight. I don't see Jake Paul. Everyone's gonna hate him for knocking out Mike Tyson. And so I could see the fight going the distance. Jake is just trying not to get knocked out. But
that's what he has to worry about.
Yeah. If Jake doesn't get knocked out, he wins. Because Mike Tyson, the power leaves last. So if Mike Tyson catches him in the first couple rounds, like in vintage Tyson comes out swinging, Jake Paul could be embarrassed. But also, the cardio thing, we don't really know how good Mike Tyson looks right now. 4 years ago when he fought Roy Jones, if he is anywhere close to that, Jake's going to have a problem, because Jake is, for his size, he's a pretty slow puncher. He's not as quick for a 185-pounder. There are guys much quicker. He doesn't have Ryan Garcia crazy hands. Power is one of his greatest assets, and he's 185 pounds. Tyson's been fighting huge heavyweights in his day, but now he's put on more weight, so he's going to be even slower. So he's looking 230, and he's looking pretty fat. So he's got a lot of time to cut for the fight. I think he's 2 months. Unfortunately, I'm gonna buy it and watch it.
Oh yeah, I am too. I'm gonna bet it too. I just can't decide.
Yeah, I mean, Mike Tyson going the distance is a good bet. because Jake Paul knows that if he, you know, kills Mike Tyson in the ring, but it would be better off if he danced with him for every round. There's no stipulations. It's one of these things where, yes, it's a sanctioned fight. It counts
I
for
saw
pro
that.
record.
I looked it up too, and I was like, because a lot of people are saying it's going to be rigged, but based on what I looked up, I don't know much about this at all. But it said, if you rig a sanctioned Texas fight, it's a felony.
Yeah, so it won't be rigged, but like a handshake deal to make it like a glorified sparring session.
Sure.
I mean, once you know how to box, and Jake Paul is a boxer, he knows how to box. Once you know how to swim, you can sort of hang in there with anybody and make it look like, except if you're like Usyk, Tyson Fury. Like Usyk was knew he was losing the fight, so he was like, I have to try to kill this guy. So, Mike Tyson's they're going to make a shit ton of cash. Tyson doesn't need to win. Usyk needed to win for the glory of Ukraine, for his heavyweight boxing career, like to bring more eyes to the struggle of the Ukrainian people. Like, that's why he almost knocked out Tyson Fury, because he was losing that fight and he had to win. That's why he knocked him down in the 7th round, because he was like, you've lost 6 rounds. Like, you got to win this round and win the rest of the rounds, or you knock him out and get the win that way. So, like, a lot of boxers won't like try to knock guys out because they know they can win on points. Like Dimitri Bivol could have knocked out Canelo, but he knew he was just winning the fight, so he was being conservative. He was, bobbing, weaving, using his jab. Every jab landed was a point. So you can just do that and win fights. I don't see Jake Paul coming out to knock out Tyson, because Tyson might catch him. And at the same time, I can't wait to watch it, because imagine if Tyson knocks out Jake Paul. That's the only reason why I'm going to watch, is like that crazy. It would end the whole Jake Paul madness. I mean, he would probably end up fighting his brother, which would be, I'd also watch that, but they'd definitely just dance. But I can't wait.
And I'm sure Tyson will get kind of crazy when he gets back in the ring. I feel like you can't. Oh, yeah. I feel like you can't like just stop do that. Like he used to be crazy.
I mean, the dude's juiced up on TRT. Probably gonna be on as many hormone replacements that make him feel young. He loves smoking weed, so he's gonna smoke weed before the fight. That's a guarantee. And like he almost killed Roy Jones Jr. Like when they were talking about a rematch, Tyson was like, "Hell yeah, I want a rematch." Roy Jones Jr. was like, "I gotta talk to my family. That was crazy. Like I almost didn't make it out of there. What do you mean? Like he's not going to be a pushover." The thing that did surprise me was how much taller Jake Paul was than Tyson. So, but Tyson's knocked out 6'6" dudes. Like I don't think it's be that crazy, but I'm pumped for it. How is Jake Paul's Better, that company, doing? BTR.
I don't know much about.
Like, is it doing well? That's something sort of from the business wise I'd like to see, because I don't know anyone who uses it.
I don't. So, and that's such a hard. I don't know much about it, but it's such a hard industry to get into right now. Because you have to, like, they're doing the legitimate, like what tech companies do back in the day.
Yeah.
Is just burn so much cash to get market share, and you got to have that cash to burn it.
I mean, I know they're creating a lot of content. Mm-hmm. Like there's Better Derek, but I think it's the headliner on all of Paul's content. But just something to look into. But Matt, is there anything else you'd like to talk about?
I'm good, man.
It's been amazing to have you on.
I had a great time, for sure.
I hope there's people out there who learn something. There's a lot of dudes who don't know what to do with their money, and they're just like, inflation. We're never gonna have savings, and it's never gonna grow. I'll be renting a house my whole life, never be able to buy. Like, dudes can't buy houses. Hopefully, this provide a little insight into some smart things you can do with your money, and also just amazing information. Like we went through a lot today. I gotta stack it all up. What do we even call this episode?
We talked about a lot, definitely.
That's become a challenge recently. Starting this podcast is that we talked Bitcoin. Yeah. So when do you think it's gonna peak? when do you think the next peak's going to be for Bitcoin?
I would say July, August 2025.
Okay, perfect. That's that's huge. That's a huge time for me. So I will. Perfect. So check out Invest Matt Allen on Twitter, Invest Matt Allen on Instagram.
Yeah, sure.
Spelt exactly how you think it's spelt. Awesome to have you on. Come on whenever you want.
Okay.
If you have something you want to talk about, love to hear from you. Maybe I've had so many recurring guests. I want to start combining them because I think they'd also have great conversations. As always, hope you guys are enjoying Audio Crack. Subscribe on YouTube, Instagram, Rumble. You know, follow the TikTok, follow the Instagram, follow all that. Hopefully this is growing, and hopefully this gets picked up by Barstool. If you want to advertise with Audio Crack, please email me at billyfootball@barstoolsports.com and we can set something up. And thank you to all the Audio crackheads, crack listeners. We're about to do our 10th episode with Dana Beers. I'm going to go do that right now. It's going to come out Tuesday after Memorial Day. Won't be able to record on Monday, Memorial Day. So Dana and I are just going to get hammered and do a podcast. Hopefully, you think I had some sort of intellectual conversation now, because the one on Tuesday is going to be absolute meathead shit with Dana Beers. Get into Dana. We're honestly going to just like do the best boozing tips. So like best way to like not gain weight while drinking a ton of beer, like best way to like avoid hangovers. It's going to be fun. Little sneak peek: if you don't want to get drunk but you're going to have to drink a ton of beer, take a spoonful of yeast before you go out drinking, because the yeast eats the alcohol in your stomach and sort of neutralizes it. This would be huge if you're like rushing a frat and they're going to make you drink a ton. Like this actually could save your life. But we're not doctors, and don't, if we tell you to do something stupid, don't do it. But Matt, thank you so much for coming on, and keep on cracking. This podcast is growing pretty fast. Every now and then I'm like, man, should I just give up? But no, the crackheads keep on coming. So thank you for keep listening. Love you guys. Have a good one. Peace. Happy Memorial Day. Great weekend. Kicks off the summer. Be responsible. Don't do anything bad, and have a lot of fun. Peace.